Boy, do I have one passed out pussycat on my lap. He's in a yoga pose that I can't identify. He is so relaxed. What a good role model. Anyway, it's great to see you. We've been talking about power this week. Uh, let's see, here's a fascinating line from scripture when the great spiritual master says, "The works that I do, you will do, and greater works even still." Paraphrased, of course, but it's an interesting invocation to us to the things that we will do. And but the question is, why don't we? If we're told that sooner or later in the fullness of time we will exercise great power to do greater and greater works, greater than works yet seen, how come we're not doing that? Why do we struggle like little children with small little problems? And even worse yet, how is it that we struggle? I mean, it's one thing to struggle with a problem. We're all going to do that. But perhaps the most absurd thing is to struggle with the same problem over and over and over and over and over again, conceivably for a lifetime. It would be absurd if it wasn't tragic, because one could lose an entire lifetime to a struggle with one or two particular problems over and over and over again. And our lack of our ability to contact the power that would instantly heal it is, well, there's the rub, there's the challenge, isn't it? So what is it about us that's preventing or obstructing this great power from moving in and through us? Well, now I'm going to go to a different sort of scripture, and it says, it's talking about for those people who might struggle with alcohol, and it says, alcohol, cunning, baffling, and powerful, and yet there is one who has all power. So if you remember what I said yesterday, it's like, how do bad people, how do bad things actually get access to power and become powerful over us? And I mentioned that it's an odd twist of power. It's actually more like a leverage or a force that's temporarily gained that obstructs and blocks true power. But in truth, chances are, if you're on this call and you're listening to this, you know that there is one power who has all power. It's the power that creates universes. It's the power that keeps planets going around the sun. It's the power that turns seeds into flowers and turns embryos into babies. And we all have access to that power, but to some degree, we also have access to our own mortal power, a little bit of physical power, a little bit of mental power, a little bit of emotional power. And as soon as we get a little bit of that, then instincts take over and we begin to exercise our own power into whatever sort of leverage we can to get whatever it is that we want. But of course, at the same time, everybody else is doing exactly the same thing. And then you have the world, and we're using whatever power we have in probably the most diminished way. Now, oftentimes, maybe it's malicious and deliberate, but oftentimes it's just silly and ignorant that we're doing that. So we all need to remind ourselves that there is one who has all power, and that by coming into alignment with it, we will be able to do the great works of healing that have been done in the past. We still live in the age of miracles. A great spiritual writer once asked in an essay that I read, how come you don't walk into a room and heal people? How come you don't talk to people and give them instant solution to whatever their problem is? How come your joy, light, love, optimism, and spirit doesn't immediately draw those who are cast into darkness and depression and discouragement? How come it doesn't lift them out? In other words, how come you're not the great healer that you could be? Well, part of it begins with the recognition that that's our destiny and we can do it. And all we need to do is have a brand new mind. We are renewed by the remaking of our minds. And as we realize great power is available to us, we recognize any problem that we're struggling with, especially chronic ongoing problems, is that we are actually the cause of the problem, and our solution is making the problem worse and worse, and a willingness to back away, humble ourselves, and It can be as simple as asking great power to move in and through us. A simple humility that says, I pray to give up my silly, absurd, self willed notions and my own leverage trying to force my outcome, and instead let it be, lift up the oars, float downstream. God, show me the solution to the problem because I know that you have it. And if I don't have it, it doesn't mean that there's not a solution. It just means that I haven't aligned with, connected with that great power yet. So sometimes we're engaged in powerlessness simply from ignorance or lack of experience. Sometimes it's malicious and deliberate, but whatever it is, it's still obstruction and it's still our own personal responsibility to clean it up. And there goes the cat. And I hope you find the topic interesting, and whatever the biggest problem is in your life, wherever the greatest solution is available, wherever the biggest miracle could come to you, perhaps we can all see how we might apply true power to it rather than the folly of simple human leverage. I'll see you tomorrow.